it would be great if I, as a consumer, would be able to invest in renewable energy, have a wallet which with kilowatt hours which I produced, and that I would be able to settle them with my consumption anywhere in the world. For example, I have an electric car, and I pay my electric bill with the kilowatt hour wallet I have for my own produced solar panel. So this is an idea which is far, far away, but it gives, if you start thinking about the possibilities.
So in the future, we will not only have euros and dollars and gold and cryptos maybe, but we might also have kilowatts.
Kilowatts as an asset.
An asset.
Yeah, so it could be the kilowatt itself or the production capacity. We don't know where this discussion is going, but this is very well possible.
So this is a kilowatt as the nomination for exchange.
Hello and welcome. My name is Marleen Everts and you're listening to the Nx'podcast. This podcast is about conversations that translate hard decisions into simple lessons.
This week I've invited Meindert Jansberg, founder and director of Catena Investment and director of First Green Capital, to discuss innovation in the area of climate impact investing. We address Meindert's journey as an innovator in sustainable finance, the future of ownership in digitized green assets, and how Meindert is going completely bold in his journey of tokenizing kilowatt hours. I hope you like it. Good afternoon, Meindert. Meindert Jansberg is the founder and the director of Catena Investments and director of First Green Capital. He is the leading brain behind innovative finance structures, and is really dedicated to helping scale-ups, global enterprises, talent, anything to innovate and grow in the area of groundbreaking finance structures in the area of sustainability. You're a real family man. You've been teaching various courses in the field of project financing and real estate for HES Amsterdam and Amsterdam School of Real Estate. And with your over 20 years of experience in investing in energy projects, I think you are already responsible for the production of over 10 megawatts of green energy.
Yeah, that's currently in portfolio.
That's currently your portfolio, and you're developing in your developing pipeline. You have 165 megawatts.
Yeah, roughly.
Meindert, welcome in the studio.
Yeah, thanks.
What does that mean? 165 megawatts of green energy. How big? What do we have to envision by that? How?
Yeah, you can express it in square meters. You can express it in households, and if you look to 1 megawatt. Then it's roughly, we calculate roughly around 300 households.
Okay.
You can say it's 270, 310, depends a bit on how much energy a household consumes, but we say roughly 300 households. So that gives you a rough idea about the production capacity.
And in square meters, how do we see that? Is that like 165?
Yeah, roughly 1 hectare, 10,000 square meters, roughly.
Wow.
So that's more a general number. It can be smaller, it can be bigger. Depends on the power of the panels.
And this is purely in solar, but which you started already, I think, about 10 years ago.
Yeah, 10, 11 years ago we started with solar. It was an exciting time. We looked to the markets, and Germany was a very good market at the time. So 10, 11 years ago, we started with solar development in Germany. And we did quite a few projects over there. So finding the spot, the location, the complete development, including the permit, ground base and rooftop mix. Currently, still 10 megawatts is producing. And more than 160 megawatts is under development currently, and that's a portfolio that it's over time it changes. Then it's more, then it's less, and sometimes you do an exit.
Okay, but it's quite uncommon, I think, to go from structured finance to production and developing, right?
Yeah, that's true, because getting into the asset is a very interesting ride. It's really a lesson. the development of projects in that time, 10, 11 years ago, we needed to discover a lot. And there were other parties already developing in Germany, in the Netherlands, some front runners. But you have to discover almost everything. Now it's more common. You see a lot of developers here in the Netherlands, in Germany, in Spain, throughout Europe. I think there are thousands, 1,000, 2,000 developers. I don't know how many.
And but you, so amongst those 2,000 developers, First Green Capital, that's your development company, is taking quite a stand in that.
Yeah.
But still, it's uncommon to go from like a purely financial, basically your background is structured finance, to that production area, and it tasted like more because you're not only doing this anymore, you're running way more projects as well. Yeah,
that's true. We are in wind development. We are in LED projects, so LED lighting.
Yes.
And the interesting part of a PV panel, or also in a certain way of wind power, is that it resembles very much the structure of a bond. So you have an investment which equals the nominal of the bond, and you will receive a pretty certain return over time.
Yeah.
Not counting in technical issues, so you can insure them, but it has a high resemblance. So my background is in structured finance, fixed income, and these projects resemble very much these characteristics. It's an investment in the beginning. It's long-lasting cash flow. So it gives all kinds of opportunities to structure and to invest in these projects. We did it until recently. Until 2 years ago, we did it in a very traditional way. Actually, asset-based financing with an equity portion, some junior debt and senior debt. And due to developments in the markets, we are tending to the more tokenized finance side, and more making use of the unique elements of a solar panel.
Yes.
For searching in the search for different financing structures.
Let's zoom into that. So you say that this solar panel, for example, has some unique features. Maybe not only the solar panel, but also the geographical or the geographical legislation. You develop a lot in Germany, I think. Also brings in some added some advantages from that perspective. So can you elaborate a little bit on that? So where you go from really traditional financing, debt and equity, to you've recently started one of my favorite projects with Catena Power in a totally new direction, where you're exploring new ways of financing. In this case, sustainable energy.
Yeah. If you look specifically to the German market, often people say, well, the renewable energy is a more or less state-like, guaranteed, German bond-like investment. That's not completely true, but it's very understandable that people say that. The structures are changing there at the moment. But over time, we got into the blockchain discussion. We also followed the crypto discussions of the last few years. And if you look to a portfolio, you are dealing also with asset management. And how are you able to identify in your portfolio certain assets?
Yes.
If you have a solar park and you have a problem in a string, an array of panels, the whole production of this string drops below the expected level. So in asset management, you have a real challenge in identifying the panels which have a problem. We use software to discover them. But this brought us also, from the perspective from LED lighting, to the blockchain discussion. Are we able to identify a solar panel uniquely in a field? Imagine a field of 40, 60, 70,000 panels, and you're searching for 3, 4, or 5 panels. Then you need to know where this panel is.
Yes, but that's from an asset management perspective.
Yeah, that's from an asset management perspective. Now we had a deep dive in blockchain. We did some research also with our maintenance partners in Germany. And we got on the track of using blockchain in creating a different kind of ledger of identifying your panels. Met a lot of interesting parties in this field who are also investigating and innovating in this field. That led to a further discussion. If you can identify a panel, I also am able to tokenize this specific panel into a token. Of course, you have different types. You have the security token, which is really an investment instrument.
Investment type of token.
And you have the utility token, which is more a ledger-like token. But it opened up a broad discussion in our company, because if you're able to tokenize a solar panel or an LED light or a fractional token of a wind park,
yes,
then I'm able actually to transfer some ownership of a solar panel to another person. And that gives a whole new array of funding and financing opportunities. That's one side, and on the other side.
So sorry, because that triggers me. So meaning that you not invest only in a park, but you possibly invest in a string of panels or just one panel.
Or an individual panel.
But why would I want to do that?
If you look, for example, to the German market, ownership of assets like solar panels is of high interest in people reducing their tax in what we call here in the Netherlands box one in their income tax. But then you need to show ownership. So having ownership has tax implications for the investor. Instead of investing in a bond, you really own the solar panel. But you also can go one step further. If we're able to identify each panel, we can make a profit and loss account on the level of a panel.
Yeah.
So that also means that the return that you can offer is direct linked to the panel.
Yes.
Of course, you can make a layer of a mutual assurance amongst all investors, but it gives all kinds of new possibilities. And that's a different way of looking to a asset. And if you really dive to the level of a string or to the level of a panel, then you can create different type of financing structures. And if you take that a bit further, then you also could say that a solar panel has an expected yield or an expected production over time. So actually, it's the value of the panel is the discounted value of the expected production over time. So you can, if you really deep dive in this, you can look at a completely different way in funding and financing these renewable assets.
Yes, because normally these assets are highly debt financed. Yeah. Equity is almost not available, especially not for retail investors. Yeah. Does that change your business case as well? Yeah,
it does, because currently we've worked via the traditional way. So that means equity, junior, senior debt in projects. A lot of these energy projects have very tight cash flows during the first years. What we offer in the market, we offer the junior bond at Nx'podcast that has been closed, I think, last December.
Correct.
That is an investment in that's a liability. That's an investment in the liability side of the balance sheet of the company.
Yes.
If we were able to offer the asset itself, then you're not investing in the liability side, but you're actually you're actually investing in the asset side. That changes your business model, because of course, if you do that, you actually exit part of your projects to investors. They have it in their portfolio to be identified by what we call a token. But then you need to give certain services like maintenance, operations, access to the grid, So your model as a company changes because you're not issuing a
you're
bond.
giving up a piece of equity,
but you're exiting a part of your assets via this procedure, via this ID.
And would you expect that that the investor does the investor really care which solar panel he is invested in? Is that from a tax perspective? Is that really important, or?
Yeah, that's an interesting discussion. If it makes a difference, this is still unbeaten ground. Huh? We can tokenize assets. We can do that for a pretty long time. We can identify assets. We know you can know your asset. And is it for the investor of really importance to actually own an asset? And that's an interesting question. We are researching that. You just referred in the introduction to Catena Power, which is our funding company or our internal funding company. And the first step we did over there was that we took a normal bond, just a normal bond, and the first step to start tokenizing the liability side in a utility token of your funding company. This is a very simple first step, and really tokenizing these assets and being able to transfer them from investor to investor or wallet to wallet.
Yeah,
that is a huge challenge to achieve.
What is the road to get there? So you've recently started the project with 2 tokens, in which, amongst others, IBM is involved. Which other players are involved?
Blocklab of Rotterdam.
Bondex is involved.
So there are lawyers are involved. Quite a broad group. It will start in 2 weeks' time.
Yes. And what is the actual case which you're going to develop in that?
We believe that if we look to this renewable energy sector, that a huge part in the future will be owned by a lot of investors, and we think there is a huge advantage in using blockchain as a ledger. In tokenizing liabilities and assets.
Yes.
I think in the future it will be a combination. What we've done is tokenizing this liability side, and we're currently experimenting in one of the extensions of a rooftop park in Germany with the first step being able to identify
what the asset is.
So really know your asset principle and trying to set up the system that you need to be able to exchange this asset in an infrastructure. With the 2 tokens project, we are going even for a further goal. There's not only tokenizing the asset, that's the first step, but to fractional tokenize the asset and be able to offer an investor 100 kilowatt peak as an investment instead of 1 panel, or kilowatt hours as an investment. And the general idea behind that is that it would be great if I, as a consumer, would be able to invest in renewable energy, have a wallet which with kilowatt hours which I produced, and that I would be able to settle them with my consumption anywhere in the world. For example, I have an electric car, and I pay my electric bill with the kilowatt hour wallet I have for my own produced solar panel. So this is an idea which is far, far away, but it gives, if you start thinking about the possibilities.
So in the future, we will not only have euros and dollars and gold and cryptos maybe, but we might also have kilowatts.
Kilowatts as an asset.
An asset.
Yeah, so it could be the kilowatt itself or the production capacity. We don't know where this discussion is going, but this is very well possible.
So this is a kilowatt as the nomination for exchange.
For example, yeah. So, but this is far away. And what we're doing with the 2 tokens is that we're really trying to build a use case, an example case, to show that this could work in the future. Of course, it means a lot for legislation, and the regulator needs to make an opinion upon this. But the potential is huge, and it would mean an enormous change in the energy market, because actually the energy itself, which is more or less a commodity, becomes an investment instrument. So that's, in our opinion, a highly interesting development.
And step one would be to track and trace and create the know your asset principle on a solar panel level
itself,
or even on a solar panel cell, or how does that? So
now on the level of a panel, of course, a panel is a chip from structure. So it is very well possible that in the future, solar producers will engrave something in this chip structure that will identify the panel and will produce a P&L or performance indicators. So I think if you look to the future, we see this tokenization of the liabilities, which we're doing currently, with the tooling of Bondex, for example. Second step is tokenization of assets, know your assets, and showing that you're able to transfer them via wallets. And even further behind that, you can think of fractional ownership or kilowatt-hour wallets. It's far away, but it's a highly interesting development. And we've seen in the past that these things can go really, really quick.
So, Meindert, they call you the king of restructuring. And I kind of agree. But where does that come from?
I don't know. Now, I think one of the core competences we have as a company is that if we start projects, we have the length and the duration to keep going and not giving up in difficult paths or in difficult times. Because if you look to these developments we're discussing, it's perhaps it sounds logical or unlogical, but realizing these developments takes a lot of effort and duration. And I think in most of these projects, you're back every month at the design table because you ran into something that didn't work or wasn't possible or gave trouble with legislation or whatsoever.
So for every yes, probably 1,000 no's. And,
exactly. Yeah, and of course, in the past, we bought quite some projects or companies which had problems in their portfolio due to technical failures, which is one of the bigger issues. Was one of the bigger issues in the renewable energy market. You could have bought a bad set of solar panels, or you had problems with your wind turbines or LED lighting.
And that can become pretty operational then. So,
that can become pretty
very, very important if you're invested in it.
Yeah, and it gives you really in-depth knowledge on the technology. Because if you surface the problems, you know where the boundaries of the technology are. So you need to be, I believe that if you've been in trouble in a project, the next project will be better.
Absolutely. So how does now there are like multiple developers. How does Catena and First Green Capital differentiate themselves from what is going on in this market? Are you just doing what everybody else does, or
partly we do what everybody else does, but on the other hand, we're high in this innovative field with this tokenization of the asset and of the financing structures. One other difference might be that we take into account, because it's a sustainability investment.
Yes.
And we also take into account the area you're in. So it means that the communities we're working in are often heavily involved in the projects because we create jobs, we help, we pay local taxes instead of a tax-optimized structure. We support local initiatives like small museums or a yearly Eastern fire party or whatsoever.
Very important to get the next project in as well, right?
Yeah, and the consequence of that is that you really become a part of the community. Especially in Germany, a lot of projects are in rural areas with a low density of people, small villages, little employment, less employment, and being there, it helps.
I'm new to this sustainable world. With N-Exchange, we're heading into that direction. It triggers something in me. If you would have asked me this 3 years ago, I would have said boring, not so much my thing. But now I feel a need that something needs to happen. But two is also there's a huge amount of innovation going on in this area.
Yeah.
But it's also very, very complex in terms of financing. I think the traditional windmill, we've seen that, that is happening. Yeah. But there's a lot of new innovations coming up where we need to make steps. How do you if we would target towards the more younger audience, because we have quite a broad audience of 18 to 25, and their comment and their feedback is mostly sustainability. Yeah, we need to know. We know that something needs to happen, but it doesn't do me anything.
Yeah.
What is it? What triggers you?
Well, we have an energy system which has been built up over the last 150 years. It has taken a long time to get where we are. So we have a system which is more or less set, but also develops itself to the future. And if you look to the current energy projects, if you look to energy efficiency, the first step is not using energy and energy efficiency. That's the first step you want to look into. So it really goes deep into the area in the buildings we have in the industry. So that really goes deep into that. And then you're discussing a changing infrastructure over time. This infrastructure changes relatively slow, and it takes huge challenges to have there are huge challenges to change this system integration, because everything is connected to each other. And if you start changing at one point,
you have to change the whole chain.
You can change the chain. You see the discussions on, for example, wind power, where a lot of people say, okay, if we put up wind power, we still need a lot of backup capacity in the conventional way if you want to have surety about 99.99% surety about the availability of electricity. So we are here in a changing infrastructure system, which takes a lot of time and courage to change. And it's very challenging to change relatively traditional way of working into a more system integrated way of working. And that's I believe that's highly interesting.
So where are we in the Netherlands compared to other European countries, for example? How courageous are we? Most countries do their best. If you look to the producing of renewable energy, to the production of renewable energy, you have different schemes and regimes. Some you can discuss the Netherlands is lagging, or you can say no, we're ahead. Are there certain areas where we really can lead by example?
Yeah, we had it in the very past. We had it in wind power, but it faded away over time. I think we have some really potential in innovations in the industry here in the. We need to realize that half of the energy consumption of the CO2 challenge we have is in the industry. Most people talk about the cities and the building areas, but especially in the industry, there is a huge challenge. And there are pretty much innovative projects in the field of circularity, which is the flip side of energy.
Yes.
If you flip the coin, you're really close to circularity. There are quite some innovative projects on this field, and then you need to go and look into the harbor of Rotterdam, but also at the Camelot side and the the other in the harbor of Amsterdam, the projects that are done over there are really innovative and can make a huge impact in CO2 reduction and efficiency.
Like high level tech innovation, most probably deep tech. Anything that's going on in this area that needs
for
to
example,
be done.
What happens in Eindhoven, there is also, and in Delft, the ideas about if you go and look to the startup community over there, and the ideas that there are on innovation and new ideas, that's tremendous. And that's a very active scene. That's a very active scene here in the Netherlands.
And what should we learn from other countries?
One of the most important things is that if you have a subsidy scheme, or if you want to support transition as a government, that you need stability in what you offer, and that you need to create sandboxes or room for innovation and exceptions. So that's something that's on the radar here in the Netherlands, and that happens. It can be improved, especially if you look to the regulators, to the authority, to the supervisory authorities over there. But more important than that, we need a pool of talent. We have enough talent. We need cooperative businesses. We have it. And the fourth one, which is highly important, is funding. Early stage venture capital to get these innovations going. And this is something that is not very good available. We have in the Netherlands the ROMs, the regional development companies. They're funded by government or by provinces in most of the cases. They make a difference, but a really active investment community on sustainability, that needs to be built up. And there are also certain developments, the startup Booncap clean tech discussion you had over here. You have the climate kick programs. You have high-tech Excel, what is happening over there. But that needs to grow. That needs to become bigger. So the lack of capital for a lot of these innovative ideas is a big challenge.
Are there certain other countries that stand out? Maybe not even in this, because I think innovation is really a part of the Netherlands. But are there other things where we should think like, wow, what's happening over there? Yeah. We might not even be aware of it.
Yeah, one of the big examples always given is what Israel has done with the medical industry and the supportive schemes they've set up for like 30 years ago. Of course, we know all the stories about Silicon Valley. It seems, it looks if it's something of the last 10 to 20 years, but that isn't true. It started like 70, 80 years ago with the start of the computer industry with Hewlett-Packard. So that are a few examples where it goes very fast at the moment. We see a lot of initiatives on startup in the startup community, and it's spread out throughout Europe. So it's not. It's more or less a cluster or a network that works together. And I think there is a hidden strength in this networking and that clustering together, and the short connections between universities and possibilities. But the fact that we have 27 different legal entities with all different policies doesn't help in one popping out.
It's a global problem that we need to resolve. So it doesn't even matter in which country the innovation is taking off. So the funding can be, so if you, for example, are capable of developing new funding structures, that could also be beneficial for other countries as well, for example.
Yeah, but don't forget that, for example, ownership, tax issues, and the legal structure, the legislation in every country differs. So if you have a brilliant idea for one country,
doesn't necessarily
it might not work in another country. And what we need is scale.
Yeah.
If you look to the US, it's a lot of different countries, but you still have this huge potential of customers, and that's very difficult here in Europe.
Okay, and sustainable funding versus time. Are we on track? Is it getting there? Are we very lagging, or?
Yeah, sustainable funding is on the way. It's on the top. It's on every agenda, so it has top priority at banks. So the Dutch banks have a high emphasis on this. There are a lot of funds focusing on sustainability. So the capital side is moving. Projects are more and more changing to sustainability goals. Larger corporates have a more and more focus on sustainability, and it's moving forward slowly. And one of the issues we currently have is the discussion: what is sustainable? How do we objectively measure the sustainability of a project?
Yeah. So to avoid the greenwashing.
Greenwashing. What is sustainable today might not be sustainable tomorrow. So transparency and norms for measuring sustainability is a very important development. And I think that is lacking still in the market that we have. Of course, there's the ICMA, which and the ESG parameters, which have good indications, but that needs to develop further.
It needs to get hand and feet.
Yeah.
You did a. We were working on a project for quite a while with First Green Capital. You did the first tranche in just a couple of months ago and closed it successfully. So this was the first time you made use of public financing in sustainable one of your projects.
Yeah.
So how did you experience that?
Yeah, it was a very good. We started it as let's try this field, because let's try to open up our portfolio also with the thought of all the potential that's behind it. And it has been challenging because you need to your organization needs to adapt if you go to the public market. That has taken quite some time, but was it wasn't that difficult looking backwards. And opening up to the market and building your presence, that takes quite some time, and it was challenging. So it was a really good experience. We also decided to come with a second offering.
So we're now in the preparation of the next tranche. So the first tranche was a small bond. Issued by you of approximately 2 million. But the second tranche is a lot bigger. And it started with first 20 million. But you made a quite remarkable decision. You said we need to go larger.
Yeah. If you look to the investment market, it's either small amounts or it's big. So there is a huge gap between in the bracket 10 to 30 million. You're actually too small. So the return on effort for the larger investors, it doesn't fit on these relatively small amounts. And the energy transition actually needs these smaller amounts.
Yes.
So what we've done, we decided to get the interest of the larger investors that can take up 10 to 50 million each at a time, is to bring out a bigger bond. We will come to the market with a bond of 50 million.
Yes.
And we will tap the issue. So it's more or less a program with the promise that we will take up the whole 50 million. But as a company, we take out tranches. And therefore we are able we think we're able to get this bridge between the smaller investment
buckets,
need versus the investors that are looking for the larger amounts.
And again, leading by example. So not only you're doing this for First Green Capital, but the plan is in the future to also allow other developers to make use of this financing structure, which I think is really nice because you're opening up a new way of financing. Are there a lot of? Have you already been approached by other developers or? Yeah,
we in our network. Let's call it competitors, but in our network, comparable companies follow what we are doing. and we're having discussions with them in also getting onto this market. It's a relatively, especially this renewable energy market. Is it asset-based finance? Is it fixed income, or is it
or
structured finance, or is it equity? Everybody is still in the market is looking at it, especially at the smaller amounts. We will get a consolidation in future, and I think about 3 to 4 parties similar like our company are looking into this, and we're having discussions with them. How are you doing this? How can we get further?
So, and if we're going to Catena, like as a company, like can you describe your company a little bit? Like what type of people work there, and what? The
people that work with us have a strong focus on a sustainable future, but with a realistic approach. So the goal can be set far away, but we all know that it takes a lot of time to get there. And if you look to the profile of most people, it's a technical background or mathematics, econometrics. That's the background of our people, and we try with a structured approach to reach our goals, and that takes a lot of that takes time to get there. But in the end, we also have a lot of discussions. Is this the right direction? Is this true sustainable, or is this greenwashing? That is discussion that is continuously going on in the company.
And what are the biggest pros and cons? Like where do you, and because you also have a lot of young people represented in your company. So what how does that go? How does that? Like, what are the...
Yeah, we have a very... we often say that hierarchy forms itself amongst knowledge. So everybody is allowed to say what they think. And that gives... So if you keep an open mind, you get an open discussion. And if you look to the whole blockchain sustainability crypto discussion, that is typically something that comes up from the younger people
from the younger generation.
From the younger generation.
I think a half a year ago you weren't even able to say crypto in this room, probably because it wasn't accepted.
Yeah, you were kicked out. Yeah, you were kicked out. Yeah, that's true. So, but these younger people, they are involved in this. They are familiar. They already do have wallets. They understand it. And that gives a highly interesting discussion on how these developments go. So that happens amongst younger people. And what we do is that we have knowledge sessions where we exchange all kinds of information with each other. And for example, a few weeks ago, we had a discussion on storage technology in the battery field and what is going on over there. What are the innovations? That has been done by a guy from which is almost finished at the Technical University of Delft, who is in this field, and that brings on a completely refreshing new discussions on how to look to an intermediate as storage.
Okay, so we've touched many topics. I really enjoyed it, but I think the thing that really got me was a kilowatt as an asset class. 5 to 10 years from now, as an investor, what are the areas where I really should pay attention to? Like what is that thing what you know, and we are not aware of what is happening at the moment?
Well, I think that the opportunity of being able to invest directly in a very broad range of assets, not only the renewable energy assets, but also, for example, totally different topic, dry boxes for the containers for transportation, till real estate will become more available in a direct way to investors. So instead
no funds, really transparent.
Transparent structures where you have a sort of, in a very easy way, can invest and divest in real assets. So I think the range of real assets available to the investor community, that will become enormous in the upcoming years, and that is due to technologies like blockchain, like tokenization, that makes it possible to offer this to the public. And from that perspective, you can invest in gold and silver, in all kinds of commodities or metals, in assets, and there will be a whole new range of investment opportunities in real assets.
Wow. Okay, thank you, Meindert. Thank you very much for joining us in the studio.
Thanks.
So much enjoy all the projects we collaborate on. Very much looking forward to the Two Tokens project. Definitely following it, especially with Bondex, with Hyperledger involved, IBM involved. Please keep us updated, and I hope to see you back in some time and see where we stand and where we are.
We touched a lot of topics, but we can go much deeper in all kinds.
Exactly, we can go on for hours. Many thanks, Meindert. I love to have you here.
Okay, thank you.